The last thing I remember before hitting the floor was her smile. Not the polite, practiced smile she reserved for neighbors, nor the brittle one she used when my husband, Daniel, was in the room. No, this smile was deliberate. It was cruel, triumphant, as if she had finally won some secret battle I hadn't even known we were fighting. The wooden steps slammed against my back, one after another, as I tumbled down, the world spinning in jagged flashes. When I came to rest on the cold floor, pain screamed through my ribs, and the sharp tang of blood filled my mouth. I looked up. She stood at the top of the staircase, her hands clutching the railing, her eyes gleaming with something I could not name. And then, she turned and walked away. The fractures beneath. When Daniel rushed to the hospital, panic all over his face, I wanted to tell him. I wanted to scream that his mother had shoved me, that she wasn't the frail, grieving widow he believed her to be. But as I lay there, hooked to 4 lines and machines, I saw him kneel beside her first, taking her hand in his. "She's shaken," he whispered to me later. "She said you slipped." She tried to help, but, his voice faltered as though he wanted to believe her words more than mine. I stayed silent. Not because I wanted to. But because in that moment, I realized that to Daniel, his mother's word was gospel. Mine was just, a whisper against a storm. Still, silence is a prison. And inside that prison, suspicion grows. The house that watched. After my recovery, I returned to the house that Daniel insisted we share with his mother, until she felt less alone. It wasn't a home, it was a mausoleum of his father's absence. Heavy curtains blocked sunlight, photographs glared from dusty frames, and silence settled over the rooms like ash. She moved through it like a ghost, except ghosts don't watch you when you aren't looking. Ghosts don't leave doors slightly ajar so you hear the creak of hinges at night. Ghosts don't smile when you catch them staring. Sometimes I'd wake to the sound of her humming outside our bedroom door. Not a lullaby. A funeral march. Daniel, of course, noticed none of it. He was too busy working, too eager to believe his mother was fragile. He told me I was imagining things, projecting stress from my fall. But I knew better. I knew malice when I felt it breathing down my neck. The diary. I never intended to find it. It was tucked inside an old cedar chest in the attic, hidden beneath yellowing blankets and brittle letters. The leather was cracked, the pages worn. I should have put it back, but something urged me on, as though the house itself wanted me to know. The first entry was almost ordinary. Grief poured from the ink, mourning a husband's death, the loneliness that followed. But as the pages turned, the grief sharpened into something jagged. She doesn't belong here. She's taken him away from me. My son, my blood, my last tether. She smiles at me as though she's already won. But I will not lose. Not again. Page after page, the diary spiraled darker. She wrote of me as though I were an invader, a thief. Each word dripped with venom. Yet there was something stranger buried within, an obsession with her late husband, Daniel's father. He loved me once. Truly loved me. Until she came along and ruined it all. She doesn't know what I know. She doesn't know the truth of who he was. My hands trembled as I turned to the last written page. If she falls, Daniel will stay. He must stay. He cannot leave me too. I will do what must be done. My breath caught. She had written her intention. Proof. And yet, a darker seed took root in my mind. What was this truth she claimed to know about her husband? Confrontation. That evening, diary in hand, I confronted her in the kitchen. She didn't flinch when I dropped it onto the table. She didn't deny it when I read her words aloud. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into that same smile I remembered from the stairs. "You think you're clever," she said softly. "But you don't understand. You never understood." "What truth?" I demanded. "What did he do? What do you know?" Her eyes gleamed. "Ask Daniel." But when I did, Daniel recoiled, pale and trembling. "Don't listen to her. She's losing herself. The grief, it twists her words." Yet I could see it in his eyes. He knew something. Something he refused to speak aloud. The spiral. Days turned into nights of unease. I began to see shadows moving where there should have been none, whispers echoing in the hallways. Sometimes, I wondered if she was right, if the house itself was driving me mad. One night, I heard her in the attic. I crept up quietly and watched as she clutched a faded photograph of her husband. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "She will never take you from me again." And then, with terrifying clarity, I understood. She wasn't just mourning her husband. She was mourning a man who had never truly been hers. The darker truth. The truth came in fragments, torn from Daniel one restless night when he could no longer bear my pleading. His father had not been the man his mother worshipped in her diary. He had been cruel, controlling, his temper dangerous. Daniel's childhood was scarred with the memory of his mother's screams behind closed doors, bruises she had hidden. "She clung to him anyway," Daniel whispered, his face buried in his hands. "She built this fantasy of him. And when he died, she rewrote their life in her head. She convinced herself he loved her, that they were perfect. Anyone who threatens that illusion, she can't stand it." I thought back to the diary. To the way she wrote of me as a thief. It wasn't me she hated. It was the truth I represented, that her husband had been monstrous, that her life had been misery. By loving Daniel, by building something different with him, I was undoing her illusion. The final fall. The confrontation that ended it all came unexpectedly. One stormy night, the power flickered out, and the house plunged into darkness. I heard her footsteps approach my room, slow and deliberate. My heart hammered as I braced myself. She entered, her silhouette sharp against the flash of lightning. "You've ruined everything," she hissed. "But I won't let you take him from me. Not like his father." For a moment, I pitied her. She was broken, clinging to ghosts that never loved her. But pity didn't soften her hands as they reached for me. This time, though, I was ready. I shoved her back before she could strike. She stumbled, her balance failing, and with a sickening cry, she fell backward down the same stairs where she had once sent me tumbling. When Daniel found her, her body twisted and broken, she was still smiling. Conclusion, the reflection. The police ruled it an accident. Daniel never asked me for the full truth, though I sometimes caught him watching me with questions in his eyes. We never spoke of the diary again, though I kept it hidden, its pages whispering in the dark. Sometimes at night, I still hear her humming in the halls. Sometimes, I wonder if her spirit lingers, clinging to the house as she clung to her illusions. But what haunts me most is not her ghost. It's the knowledge that, in her final smile, there was no fear. Only victory. As if, in falling, she had won after all, because now, her shadow lives with us forever.